If you're a Destiny fan, you're going to have been pretty busy for the past few days thanks to the first beta being available. In it we got to experience the inverted Spire Strike, 2 PvP modes in the form of Countdown and Control on the maps Midtown and Endless Vale respectively, and even the new social space named The Farm. There's a lot to like in Destiny 2, and the game has progressed forward in some areas, but there are still lots of areas where the game simply hasn't moved forward at all. First things first, visually I think the game looks much better than the first game, especially if you put them side by side. I know on first glance it might not quite look like it, but when you play the Homecoming single player mission, it's really noticeable how much of an upgrade the game has had. It might not be a massive leap because of the later expansion packs for Destiny 1 that looked pretty damn good, but it's helped by the fact that the old gen consoles are no longer in the picture. Honestly though, on PC, 144 FPS on Ultra, this game is going to look fantastic. We already know it looks fantastic anyway because we've seen the footage from E3, and I can't wait to get my hands on the PC beta next month. Visuals aside, my biggest gripes with the first game were twofold. It was the FPS and the field of view. As I primarily play on PC, even though I loved the concept of Destiny, I personally really struggled to go from having over 100 FPS on PC to a locked 30 frames per second on console. It really bothered me, but if all you're used to is 30 FPS, then I understand that it's normal to you, and perhaps you don't or won't understand why it was such a big deal to me and other PC players, but it is very noticeable, and especially when combined with the low field of view, gives me a bit of a headache after a while. The field of view on most PC games that you'd play is around 80 to 90, and that's the sweet spot assuming that the game has an FOV slider, which most of them do. On Destiny though, I can only guess that it's around 50 to 60. I thought the second game would increase the FOV, or at least the FPS, but sadly that doesn't seem to be the case. I remember in the first game, if you're running around with a sword, it actually puts you in a third person perspective, and I never noticed any frame drop then, so I have to admit I thought that we would get a slightly increased field of view in Destiny 2. Maybe it is, I can't say for sure, but if it is, it's not very noticeable at all. I think the actual story content though is fantastic in the beta. If you want great PvE action, then the strikes are still just as fun as in Destiny 1. The big bosses though I think could use a bit more imagination, but the inverted Spire has some interesting mechanics and I really enjoyed playing it. Even the PvP, which I'm not usually a big fan of, was fun. But again, PvP had the same lag problems that I saw in Destiny 1, and they still seem to be present. Players seemingly not taking any damage, being killed around corners, delayed hits. I know what you're going to say, it's a beta, you can't comment on it, but I think you can when you've got the history of the previous game to go on. I'm still as shocked as everyone else that in this day and age we aren't on dedicated servers for a AAA game like Destiny, but I'm hoping that their new system will be tweaked more before launch because the PvP feels a lot more balanced to me compared to the first game, although we do have those lag problems, which is a very big deal. Specifically though, some things I like about the PvP, Countdown is a lot of fun, and the swap up of these secondary weapons to now be power weapons meant that I encountered snipers and shotguns way less than I did before, which to me was a way better experience. Of course that might change when the full game's released and everything is available. It looks like Destiny 2 has so much content to offer. We'll get much more interesting planets to explore this time around, as well as quests to get stuck into, and thankfully we know that it's coming to PC, which honestly after playing the beta on PS4, I think brings with it its own set of problems now I've had a chance to play the game in the wild. So when I played Destiny 2 on PC at the launch event and at E3, it was glorious. 60 FPS and 4K, but being able to play Destiny for the first time with a mouse and keyboard and have it feeling right was amazing. And herein lies a bit of a problem I think. Hand cannons and auto rifles for instance potentially could be a lot stronger on PC. Of course there isn't any cross-platform play, so that's not an issue here, but PvP could be a lot different on PC than it is on console just because of the nature of PC play. It tends to be a lot faster than console. There are some insane players on console that make the game look incredibly easy, but on balance with the fast movement of a mouse, PvP could be a bit crazy if players are just getting two-tapped across the map by hand cannons all the time because they're getting consistent headshots. PvE of course isn't so much of an issue, but even still having a bit more difficulty to the weapons is always welcome to me just to make it a bit more interesting. In the current beta it seemed that SMGs and pulse rifles were the strongest weapons, and if you're using a mouse and keyboard on PC, landing a few bursts of a pulse rifle is not that difficult at all. So I think maybe there's a bit of an argument here for having separate balance on PC and console, and we're going to talk about that a bit more now. There was some confusion recently when project lead Mark Noseworthy said that there would be no recoil on the PC because it didn't feel right compared to console. Later, another dev, David Shaw, clarified that recoil won't be completely eliminated on PCs but just heavily modified from console. To me, that makes sense. It has to be different because playing games on a controller and on a mouse are very different things. Of course, to me and most people who have played games for many years, controlling recoil on a mouse is far easier than on a console controller, and that's just the reality of it. When I played the game at E3 though last, the PC version felt just fine. A few games are starting to realise though the need for balancing their games separately on PC and console. Overwatch, for example, being the most high profile one in recent times. They don't do massive sweeping changes, but when needed they tweak things differently between the platforms because when testing and playing the game, some combinations just end up being a bit overpowered or underpowered on different platforms. I actually think that when a game like PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds heads to console, they'll soon realise that some of the weapons may need tweaking as well. In that game we've got slower movement and big recoil on guns, and whilst that is manageable to some people who are capable on a controller, it is a bit trickier for the majority. In a recent interview, Bungie's Luke Smith touched on this when he said, "Going here into PC for the first time, we want to make sure that the PC game plays as well as the console game with respect to the audience's desires." So that means custom. We are treating recoil in a custom way. We're treating aiming and bullet accuracy custom for the PC. We want to have a game that plays amazingly on the PC for what the PC audience expects. And when you think about it, this is actually a really difficult job for the developers. You want to balance the game separately, but you also want to ensure that the game feels similar across all platforms. And I think in the long run, that's why the PC version needed some extra time and why there's a bit of a delay on it. Bungie have had a long time to work on the console version of the game, but perhaps a few changes are needed for the PC version to ensure that it plays how they want it to, not to mention some extra graphical options that are a must. So when the beta lands in August for PC, I think it's going to be a very interesting time and something to keep your eye on. I'm really interested to see how PvP especially plays out on PC. For example, will the lag issues be even more prominent because of the fast-paced nature of PC play? Will there be more trade kills, for example? I really hope that the lag issues aren't more of a problem on PC, but based on what I've played in the Destiny 2 beta on console, I think it's a fair criticism and fear to have. You know, are you going to just constantly be 2 or 3 tapped across the map by pulse rifles and hand cannons on PC, and then, like I said, get killed around corners again and again? Fingers crossed that doesn't happen, and the PC version manages to iron all of these kinks out. It could be a really rocky launch for the game if it doesn't. But I guess thankfully that's what betas are for. It will be good for PC players, especially to get a feel for what the game is like, because I think Destiny 2 will be a huge hit on PC if it's done well. There simply isn't anything else like it on the platform right now in my opinion, and PC players will flock to it. So there we go guys, that's my quick impressions for the Destiny 2 beta. And also, do you guys think that we should have separate balance for PC and console? I'm a big advocate of that and I think that we should, but I'd love to hear your opinion on it too. As always, thank you for watching guys. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, a thumbs down. Subscribe for more and I'll see you in the next one.